every day she'd see me, she would walk by and just look at me dead in the eyes, smile, and then wish me a good day. And every time she would do that, like, I remember just looking down in shame and feeling like, this is embarrassing, right?
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Mindful Space. We are here in LA, California, and today we have Andrew Linares. How are you today?
I'm well.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for
having
taking
me.
the time. I'm sorry that it's raining. We made it work, right?
That we did, yeah.
So today our topic is going to be how to stay sober. I know you work for an organization, so I'm just going to let you introduce yourself so our audience can really get to know you. What do you do?
Absolutely. So my name's Andrew Linares, as you mentioned, and I work at the Midnight Mission as the volunteer manager. But most importantly, I went through the Midnight Mission, and after receiving services there and getting a grasp in sobriety, I've been sober for now 7 years, and it's been a journey, and I never want to forget that, just because it's where I came from. And it's what continues to allow me to, keep an open mind to grow more.
Exactly. Yeah, open to growth in general.
Yeah.
How did your addiction start? How did you get into the drugs and alcohol?
Drugs and alcohol, well, alcohol, it started off with me with alcohol. It didn't seem unusual to have any kind of alcohol. My family, being a Latino family, there's a lot
Yes.
of people that just drink and
get it.
have fun, So it didn't seem like anything bad. I did see some, horrible incidents that happened within my family, with when alcohol was around, but it wasn't anything that, steered me away from it.
Yeah.
And I remember just recently, I remember that when my dad or my sister would ask me to get them a beer or whatever,
Yes.
they'd let me have the last bit of whatever they had in their can. And it was just kind of like, oh, it's on, right?
Cool.
But it wasn't, until 17 when I went to a backyard show, because I loved rock and roll and punk. And I walked into a friend's backyard and there was a band playing. And I remember just feeling uptight and just like uncomfortable. And then someone handed me a red Dixie cup that was filled with Jack and Coke. And I didn't ask any questions. I just took it and drank it. And I remember once I was done with that cup, like, I felt like my shoulders were a little
looser.
And I was able to, like, enjoy the music. I was able to talk to, anyone that was
more
there.
sociable.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, that's when I ended up realizing, like, I like this, And
How old were you?
17.
17.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So I was, on the verge of graduating high school because of the situation that I had with my family. My mom and my dad separated, and what ended up happening is my mom, she just didn't want any liquor around her, because I didn't realize this until I got sober, that my mom's been dealing with alcoholics and drunks her entire life, from her father all the way to me and my older sister, and so she just, when she separated from my dad, she found an opportunity to just, let's start fresh. And so I didn't have access to alcohol as much. So it didn't become too much of a problem from that moment. But years later, when I turned 18 and I graduated high school, like, there was nothing that anyone can tell me. Like, that sense of entitlement that we get played a role, and I started drinking the way that I wanted to drink.
Okay. Yeah, that's when you really had the access to the alcohol.
Yeah.
And how long, so from that age to how long were you addicted to alcohol, basically?
So from the age of 18 to 27. So roughly about 10 years.
Yeah.
But drugs came in. I did experiment with drugs and, do a few things for social, events. But drugs did not take over my life until 2012. And from 2012 all the way to 2015 is when, I hit the lowest of the lowest bottoms that I can hit right now.
So, what does the lowest of the lowest look like? Is that when
So
your living
being on the
situation?
streets, that's the lowest physically, but spiritually, for me, it was feeling like alone. I
Mhm.
can be surrounded in a crowd and just feel like I'm all alone, and just it just seems dark, and at that point it just started feeling like, like I can't do this anymore, right? And so like I couldn't live my life. I didn't even feel like there was a life for me to live. And so I just, constant prayer for death, and it just got really dark and morbid.
You were having suicidal thoughts?
Yeah, but at the same time, like I was, uh, how can I say it? I was just pretty much judging myself, like that's
Okay.
stupid. Don't be weak.
Okay.
So it
Like,
was a tug of war of like, what do I do, right? Like I
yeah.
don't want to live, but I'm not gonna take my life because I'm not
Okay.
that type of person, right? But
Well, that's a good thing. Now looking back at it, right?
yeah,
You're like, well, good job. My ego didn't let me.
exactly, yeah.
So, when you were homeless, what were some of the major struggles of living in the streets?
The biggest struggle that I had was not being able to find a place to sit still.
Okay.
Constantly having to move around because either you were in someone else's property, and so they
Mhm.
didn't, people don't like that. Um, or also, who knows where you're at? Like other homeless people who are having like ill intentions towards you, so you
So
want to,
safety.
yeah, safety.
Mhm.
Um, but it's also just, again, that loneliness, not having anyone to talk to, going from being a very social person, going to backyard shows, clubs, festivals,
Yeah.
and having fun, to nothing, you know in a blink of an eye. And it just kind of like brought me down.
And where was your family? Did you separate yourself
They
from your
actually closed the
family?
doors on me,
Okay.
and for good reason. Like I don't at the time, I blamed them, and I didn't, like I
Understand it.
yeah. But now I see that, like I did that. And like, of course, I would have done the same thing. So I don't hold any grudge towards them. And if anything, like I thank them for doing that, because it got me to that level of feeling that loneliness and seeing like as much as I can lie to myself and say like people are my problem, like I can't be
Yeah.
around people, I can't stand people, like in reality, I love being around others.
Yeah.
I seek that constant companionship, and, being on the streets taught me that. And today, like even on on my worst days, like I'm still enjoying and making the best out of being around, because
Exactly.
it's a journey, like I said in the beginning.
Yes, of course. And then when you've hit rock bottom and you look back, that's, it could be a motivator as well.
Yeah.
Now, what moment was there a moment where you hit rock bottom? Like when you decided to get sober, like this is it, I've had enough. Was it like a one event thing, or one day you just woke up and decided to do the work? How did it
No.
happen to you?
So it was
No, because some people like will have a moment. They'll be like, well, this happened and that's when I knew I had to change. Others are like, I just woke up one day and I was like, F this.
So the darkest moment, and I laugh because, it's a silly one, but it's personable to me, and that's what I care matter for. When I was on the streets in Downey, that's where I ended up on the streets. There was a woman dressed like you, but with a pencil skirt. I remember that, and she had, obviously it was a work day, weekday. She's
Yeah.
going to work. She has her coffee, and without skipping a beat, every day she see me, she would walk by and just look at me dead in the eyes, smile, and then wish me a good day.
Yeah.
And every time she would do that, like I remember just looking down in shame and feeling like, oh my God, like this is embarrassing, right? But deep down inside, I felt like she was chiseling away of that wall that I built that separated me from everyone else, right? Because that was my defense mechanism. And she was able to like chisel away some pieces. And eventually, you know, one day it just felt like something cracked inside of me, and I was able to finally see, like, I do not belong on these streets. I do not want this life. Like, what am I doing with myself? Like, I'm 26, 27 years old. Like,
Yeah.
I remember having dreams before high school where, you know, I'd say like, oh, I'm going to graduate high school. I'm going to go to college and become an
Yeah.
architect, or go to the Air Force and become an Air Force pilot. And then, at 35, I'm going to have my own house
Yeah,
and
you had
partner.
goals and a
Yeah.
plan.
None of that, was going on. I didn't graduate. I went to school for 2 weeks and then
And
dropped
dropped
out,
out.
because my priorities changed at the time.
Okay.
I'm 35 years old now, and I'm still working on getting that house and that partner.
Yes.
But
It's not easy nowadays, though, I
exactly.
must say.
But she did for me what I could not do for myself, right? Is to see. And she did that with just a random act of kindness. And so today I'm a strong believer that anyone can make a difference in anyone's life just by giving them a random act of kindness.
Yeah, like you never know.
Yeah.
She will never know how it affected you.
Yeah.
Just saying good morning.
And she probably just did that to anyone else. I'm probably not
Yeah.
anyone special, but to me, it was a special moment because she allowed me to finally have like a reflective spiritual mirror to see like who I've become.
Yeah. You probably felt seen,
Yeah.
because you felt alone and no, you thought nobody noticed you. And then she
Well,
would notice you every morning and,
and most
yeah.
people, other people would walk around me because I'm that homeless guy, right? Or other homeless people would, again, have ill intentions or whatever, right? But she is the only one that made me feel human. And I didn't even know that I had lost that humanity, you know.
Wow. What an impactful story. And so after that, when you finally decided to get help, how did you get help and how was that journey? Was it easier or harder than you expected?
Easier, quite honestly. so so what happened is like a few days went by after, all that happening with her, and I finally hit. So the what was funny to me is, so this tooth that I'm missing right here started aching because of the amount of meth that I was doing, and the amount of candy that I was, sucking on because
Yeah.
my mouth needed to be busy. Uh Eventually ended up decaying that tooth, and it hurt. And I remember just crying, right? And then all these memories started flashing back of like my mom taking care of me and all these other things. And like I'm a mama's boy. Like I'm not gonna lie, and I'm proud of that,
Okay.
But I remember crying myself to sleep because that's when I realized yet another thing, right? Like I did this to myself, and my family had every right to close the doors on me. Like
Yeah.
they have nothing to be blamed about.
Yeah, you were finally taking accountability for your
Exactly.
actions.
And that brought in a lot more remorse than I expected,
I was gonna
you know.
say, I'm like, so at what point did you seek therapy? Because you needed it.
Yeah, no kidding. But I did what most alcoholics would do when they're in that moment of desperation. I reached out to a God that I didn't care about or care to understand or have part of my life, and a series of events started happening after that. I'm not, I'm not one to be like, oh, it's going to be like this God conscious or like white light experience,
Spiritual,
right?
yeah, okay.
But I do believe like, a lot of things started happening that were going against my own will for the good, you know?
Okay.
And I started, taking actions like picking up the phone and calling the people that I knew damn well that they didn't want anything to do with me. And I've called them before and they didn't pick up. So I had that in my mind as well. But for some reason, this one particular day, I picked up the phone and I started calling everyone in my phone book, family, old friends, coworkers, and no one picked up except for my niece and an old friend that I used to drink with when I first started drinking.
Okay.
And me and her, we used to party like crazy. But one day she just stopped going to the bars. She stopped going to the events, and I didn't know why.
Mhm.
And when she picked up the phone and I spoke with her, we started talking, and I didn't know how to say I need help,
Yeah.
So I just sparked the conversation with her, and she told me, right there and then, like, oh, I haven't seen you since this day. And I was like, yeah, what happened to you? She told me, like, her autistic son ended up getting sick. And so that was enough reason for her to stop,
Okay.
right? The partying. And so that's where I realized, like,
Yeah.
what?
So you've been through what I might be going through.
Right.
Okay.
But there's a difference between the way that her and I are physically made, right?
Yeah.
Because she needed a sufficient reason. I've had plenty sufficient reasons to stop, but yet I continued.
But everybody's reason might be different.
Yeah,
So you can't really say that you had sufficient reasons. You didn't have the one that you needed. For
exactly.
her, it was her son. For somebody else, might be a cousin or the dog or
Right.
awakening, So,
But the
give
fact
credit
being,
to yourself.
oh, I do now, but I mean, like, at the same time, it's just kind of like, hers was more a selfless act. Mine was more of a selfish act.
Yes.
And I see that. And then right there and then I asked her, I'm like, look, I need help. I don't know what to do. She saw me a couple, like, before I ended up on the street, she saw me and she didn't say anything. She treated me nice. I was just somewhere out in public. And that day she was just like, oh man, I've been waiting for this call. Thank God. I was like, what do you mean? She's all like, so the last time I saw you, I was like, yeah. She's like, I knew there was something wrong with you. And I was just like, I felt offended. I was like, what are you trying to say here?
Yeah.
But, at the same time, like, I believed it, right? And so she just told me, like, I guess her boyfriend at the time, his mom was working at the Midnight Mission. And I've never heard of Skid Row. I've never heard of, homeless shelters or recovery programs. I've heard of sober livings, and I did not want to go into a sober living because I saw that the main rule was you can't drink or use, and I was like, that's too much.
Not for me. I'm gonna pass. It's a hard pass.
Like, it's great that you're charging like very low rent, but I don't know about that
Yeah.
So I didn't venture out any further. But everything else I didn't know existed. And she proceeded to tell me, like, I told her about you, and she said whenever you're ready to give you her contact info. And so she did. She gave me you know the address to the Midnight Mission. She gave me her name and her phone number. She said, go there, ask for Julie, and she'll help you out. And I was just mind blown. But at the same time, I remember feeling like hope for the first time in such a long time, right?
Yeah.
Because at that point, like, it didn't seem like I was just in
Exactly.
purgatory, right? In a sense. And for the first time, like, I was able to see, like, okay, there's a solution, there's an option right there, right? And so, it took me 3 days to get to the Midnight Mission because, I also have that
Of
addictive
course.
personality. So go out one more time. But when I finally got there, it changed. A lot of things changed.
Now, since you started that program, obviously you've gone a long way. Now you work for the program. How was that journey? How was getting sober for you? What worked? What didn't work?
The journey has been amazing. It's been challenging, but amazing. And no one ever promised me that it was going to be a smooth sail, like,
Okay.
journey. They told me from the very beginning, you're gonna have troubles. You're gonna life is in session. Like, you
Yeah.
can't run away from that, right? But what you can do is learn how to grow, and just don't pick up. That's the simplest thing that you can do. Just do not pick up anything. And so, when I got into the Midnight Mission, I did the best that I could, follow the direction. They told me to get a sponsor, and I got myself a sponsor in a 12-step program. They told me, they gave me an assignment at the Midnight Mission, and I showed up to that assignment. They told me, like, you got to, take an education class just to see where you're at and see how we can grow.
Okay.
Like, they started giving me the tasks, and I was
A
like,
lot
all right,
of
I'll do it.
resources
Yeah.
too.
And I would do it, and then I'd start building that sense of entitlement again of, like, don't you know who I am? Like, you don't know me, right? And I see that still going
Yeah.
on,
Like, I'm
with the
still
guys in
that
the program.
person.
Well, no, and it happens with a lot of the guys, and they don't believe me until they ask me for something. I'm like, there's that entitlement right there. They just stay quiet. They're like, shut up, because it's true. It does happen. Like, and it's just us getting our self-will back, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we and I'm going to say this for myself. I just didn't know how to deal with that sense of willpower, right? Like life started getting good again. My mind cleared up, and I was sober physically. But nonetheless, the problem was still there, right? It's the fact that I don't know how to live life. I don't know how to talk to another human being. I don't know how to communicate, right? That was the biggest challenge, just learning how to use my words
Okay.
instead than using my body language, right? And eventually, I ended up going out with a guy. I also walked into the midnight mission thinking that my problems were drugs, disregarding alcohol completely.
Okay.
And so me and this other guy in the program, he was from Florida, actually.
Okay.
No, no, no. Yeah, Florida. He was and he was here in LA for recovery. And so, on Christmas Day, they didn't let us out. Like, for any of the major holidays, they don't let anyone out.
No.
For good reason.
Yeah.
So me and him
Too
were
much
just
temptation.
exactly. While everyone's watching their movie,
Yeah.
I am sitting in the back with him talking about like we need to do something tomorrow, right? We're planning our day out, and we decided we were going to get a pint of vodka. We were going to go to Universal City Walk because we didn't have any money to do anything else, and we were just gonna hang out, right? Well, we did that, and instantly, in recovery, we learned that there's a phenomenon of craving, that feeling that I have to drink more. Like
Yeah.
it can't
There's
just
no
be,
stopping.
there's no stopping, right? Like I don't, never know when it's going to stop. And I remember cracking the seal of that, and it's also, what I didn't expect is, it's vodka. I don't like vodka. We got the cheapest, which was pop off. And I'm like, I'm a whiskey guy,
Okay.
So like that mentality was just kind of like, yeah, it's not going to be that bad. But the minute I cracked that seal and I put it against my lips, I remember feeling this,
Like a familiar
yeah,
taste.
like I was able to relax again and breathe. And
Wow.
I didn't even know that I was holding my breath again, And and I had the bright idea of like, I'm gonna finish this when you get another one. And that was the end of it. And that started a new challenge for me, right? Because
Okay.
it brought back the memories that I had
With
before coming into the program.
okay.
That loneliness. And I was afraid of ending up back on the streets and
Mhm.
having to go through all that again.
So did that make you stop? It was like a one-time thing?
It was a one-time thing, and
Okay.
it's funny because there was a lot of guys in the program who were taking passes and drinking all the time, and then coming back
Okay.
sober, and they would get away with it. So
Uh-huh.
my mind would have been programmed to do the same, but because of that fear of being on the streets and feeling
Yes.
that loneliness again, it changed me, and I was just kind of like, I don't want this. I don't want this.
That's amazing. But, and I'm sure you know this, through recovery, you can always fall back and start over.
Mhm.
And that's important to be resilient and patient, and everybody's different. I think it was great that it took you that one time to have that feeling and memories and just be like, all right, this is not for me.
Yeah,
But, for everyone's different, and it could be a hard road.
yeah.
Yeah, a bumpy one for
And
sure.
one of the things that I tell the guys that I sponsor today is I know that there's another relapse in me, but I don't know if there's another recovery for me, another sobriety. And that's true to me because of the fact that, you know, I can pick up another bottle of drink and I know that I'm going to continue
Yeah.
to drink. That's not a problem. And I know what's going to happen. But I've seen so many people struggle to come back after a relapse, especially when you have built sufficient time. And I
It's
don't think
harder the
I would be
second
able to.
time.
Yeah, because you have now more guilt and remorse because it's just like,
Because
what
you
did
like
I do
almost
wrong?
made it,
Right,
and then you didn't have what it takes, or that's what you would say yourself.
right. And so I don't, I just, and so I tell them, I'm like, I'm not going to test those waters today, just at least for today, because I don't know if I'll have another opportunity to get sober,
Exactly.
right? Because I'm also the type of person that I am is, I used to, I'm an IV user. And so
Okay.
at some point in time, like I remember people telling me like, you're doing way too much. Like people that are doing drugs with me are telling me that I was doing way too much. Right. And it's just kind of like, there's something wrong with that
Yeah,
picture.
like if the
Right.
person who's also doing it with me is telling me is a lot, then maybe I should consider
Yeah. And
lowering
so
the dosage.
exactly. And so I know myself, like if I were to go out and drink, like I'm the type of person that likes to play chemist and find out that perfect solution, right? So if I drink, I'm gonna want to smoke a little weed, or when weed comes gets to me, I'm gonna want something to give me a high,
An upper.
right? And then
And
it's
yeah.
just that horrible up and down, and I will be that person that will try to shoot up the same amount that I was doing on the streets years ago
And
today,
that will make you overdose.
and that will make me overdose.
Yeah. There is
So
a lot of stories of people, relapsing and doing the same quantity, and their tolerance is not the same, and
yeah.
it just takes that one time. Well, you've talked about this, but how has being sober, staying sober, changed your life? What is the most powerful thing for you, at least?
The powerful thing is that I'm learning a lot more about myself, which I didn't even care about doing before, quite honestly. My self-worth is the one thing that I never understood that I can have, right? Because I thought I didn't deserve anything,
Yeah.
right? But being sober each day, showing myself that I can do this, right? Started giving me the confidence. And it's not the level of confidence where I can manipulate it to, do worse things.
Mhm.
It's that confidence that allows me to, like, well, what else can I do, right? And so it's funny, when I turned 7 my sobriety's in December, and when I turned 7 this past year, I remember having this moment of reflection, and I was
Okay.
able to sit still and just realize what my life has been in the last 7 years. And each year I've noticed that it's something different,
Really?
right? So in the first year, I learned how to stay sober, right? Not picking up
Hmm.
anything, and go to meetings and do sober things, right? And my second year was just learning how to communicate, which is one of the things that
Okay.
I didn't know how
Yes.
to do. So learning how to be able to say, like, I'm uncomfortable right now,
Yeah.
right? Or take compliments, because I'm the first one to look at myself in the mirror and be like, that's gross,
Okay.
right? And so hearing someone say, "You look very handsome," I'm like, "Mm," right? But I
Yeah.
learned how to say thank you,
Yeah.
right? This is
It
most,
sounds so basic, but it's not. For some people,
it's a
it's a
huge game
struggle.
changer,
Yeah.
And it's like, when someone, like a therapist tells you, like, use affirmations, put affirmations everywhere. Like, it's true. Like,
Yeah.
there's something about it in our minds that, at least for me, it's wired wrong, and I get
No,
to learn how to do it.
I think we all have our own insecurities, you know? If you don't, then I don't know, I feel like you're not human. There's different levels of insecurities, but you're always gonna judge yourself more than other people,
Yeah.
even, you know? And it's hard, and the affirmations work, even if they feel uncomfortable, right? And it sounds tacky, like just put post-its, affirmations. You're like, oh my God,
I have a
a
friend that in his
therapist.
car, he has a little book
Oh,
that he
really?
wrote affirmations
Oh,
himself.
that's
And
awesome.
so he'll get in his car every morning, crack it open, and he'll read the first page. And then he'll recite that throughout the entire day.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. I still wouldn't do it,
Is that
but
a book he sells, or he just wrote
no,
it?
it's just a little,
Yeah,
three
like a
ring
little
or like
notebook.
spiral notebook
That's
that he just
great.
writes
That's a
in.
great idea.
Uh,
So, your journey from becoming homeless to where you are now. Now you work for the organization that helped you and supported you get sober. How is that? How is that experience working?
it's crazy. So I remember when I was in the program, I was just getting, like, towards the tail end of my stay there, and I remember just telling the guys that I became friends with there, like, I'm so tired of this place, I need to go, right? And, like, just not very appreciative. And when I got my keys to my apartment and I moved out, I would find myself, without even thinking about it, I'd go back to the Midnight Mission to go visit
Mhm.
those friends that I've made, to visit the staff people that helped me, to volunteer my time in the education center.
Okay.
And I would do that every week. When I had free time away
Mhm.
from work and everything, I'd go back. And I did that for an entire year. So from 2017 to 2018. And it so happened to be that I lost it. I needed to change work.
Mhm.
And my current roommate today was working as a volunteer manager. And he came out to me. He's like, hey, there's a community events position. If you want it, just send me your resume. And I was
Okay.
like, let's give it a shot. Didn't even second guess it. Like, I didn't even think about it twice. I
Yeah.
just sent it over to him and I got the job. And it was so, like, I remember my first day just being like, this is weird, right? Because I've worked only
Yeah.
in retail. I
Okay.
did work at a sober living as a tech for like 1 year, and during that time actually. And so I've never done any clerical work, entry level, or any of that, right? Um, and so I was afraid, but I was at the same time excited. And then it dawned on me, like after being there for 2 or 3 weeks, like you now are a part of the solution that helped you.
Yes.
Like, I might not be part of the recovery program
Uh-huh.
by choice, though. That was my choice. But I'm part of the organization and helping make throw out my opinions of like, hey, so this isn't working. Maybe we should try this, right?
Yeah.
Or, when the pandemic hit, a lot changed. We had the shelter program start in 2016 when I was still in the program, and the recovery program kind of, started falling through the cracks a little bit because there was so much changes with staff. Come to find out that it was, me and other um, alumni of the organization who are currently working there who saved the recovery program and was just like, hey, so this was what I remember in the program. And the new recovery director was just like, we need that back. So let's bring that all
Yeah.
back. And so now it's running smoothly again. And, a lot of the guys are active in their program of recovery and they're just
Yeah.
like on fire for sobriety. And I'm just like,
That's
I
amazing.
was a part of that,
Exactly.
and it
Yeah.
just feels great.
And you get to give feedback from both worlds because
Exactly.
you've been through it. So you're able to do recommendations or, give advice based on real facts, like what you lived.
Mhm.
And that could be powerful.
Yeah.
And now you get to help people just like you.
Yeah.
That could be so rewarding.
It is. I always tell them, you guys are my brothers, and you guys don't even know.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even know each other. Could have met you today, and already I'll consider you my brother. And that's what they are because we suffered the same problem,
Mhm.
and now they're looking for that same solution. I'm still the same as them. The only difference is that I have a couple 24 more hours than them.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. Not that big of a difference.
no.
So this organization, how does it help in general, the community or the Skid Row community everywhere? What's the mission, the goal? How does it help people?
So the Midnight Mission's goal is to help anyone who's experiencing homelessness or on the verge of becoming homeless to find their path through self-sufficiency. And what that means is we can give you a bed and we can give you food,
Hmm.
and that would, be could be the extent, but we want you to be able to get yourself up. So one of the things that I love that my boss says is that we don't give handouts, we give a hand up,
Yes.
right? Which means that we're going to help you and we're going to hold your hand and show you what to do
Okay.
so that you don't have to experience this. And I can actually say that that is true because the advocates would teach me to just that's where my communication journey
Yeah.
started,
Okay.
right? If I had a problem with a guy, they'd sit me down in their office with the person that I have a problem with and say, what's going on?
Talk.
Yeah, talk
We're
about it.
adults.
Yeah. So they kind of forced me into it, and that started my journey in communicating more, right?
So it provides a lot of resources. I love them all. I love the idea, the goal. For those who are listening that might be going through homelessness or trying to get sober, thinking getting into this journey of the rehab world, what can you tell them? What could be your message to them?
The best experience of my journey has been that I didn't give up and I became willing and open-minded to take services from anyone or help from anyone that's willing to give it to me. Um, so definitely don't lose hope and keep an open mind. And you don't have to follow it all the way through if you don't feel comfortable with it, but at least give it a try before you knock it. And just see where it takes you. So,
Be open to the possibilities of actually getting better.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been a great interview. I loved everything about it. I'm definitely gonna spread the word about the resources and the mission and the organization, because I love everything that's doing, and I really hope that they continue to provide all these services for the people that need it. I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, the homeless community here in LA is pretty big.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually outside of the Skid Row area now. You can find it in every corner of Los Angeles, even in the high desert. It's everywhere.
Yeah. So definitely something we have to keep working on it as a community, as a whole. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to tune in next week. We have a new episode every Friday. And don't forget to subscribe, comment, let us know what you think.